Lisa joins us now live from London. Lisa, before we discuss Rupert Murdoch's testimony today, coming out of yesterday's questioning of James Murdoch, there's already been a resignation, not of a minister, but his advisor.
Yes, the man behind many of those emails that we heard snippets of in yesterday's evidence, Adam Smith, has tendered his resignation from the Minister's office. He accepts that perhaps there was a perception that he went too far in his contact with News International as it was trying to make a controlling bid for Sky B, although he does defend himself and says that it was his job to keep them informed. But certainly the first head to roll, some are suggesting there might be more to come.
Yeah, what about his boss, the Culture Secretary Jeremy Hunt? He's not out of the woods yet, it seems.
No, and we've just heard from him in the last hour as well. It was a pretty fiery session in Prime Minister's Questions time in the House of Commons. You can imagine, Tony, and Jeremy Hunt has defended himself and said that he followed a strict process. His boss, David Cameron, is standing by him. The Prime Minister says there's going to be no separate inquiry into the contacts between the Minister and News International. OK, let's go back to Rupert Murdoch. Now, he spent the morning answering questions about his influence over politicians. What has he said? Well, it was a bit of a history lesson for the media buffs. You can imagine they went back through the decades, starting with his relationship with Margaret Thatcher, who he admired greatly, and what influence he might have been able to wield as he was trying to take over the Times. Rupert Murdoch continually throughout the first 3-hour session was adamant that he hadn't tried to influence prime ministers or leaders of various parties through the years, although he admitted to many meetings. There were a few chuckles, Tony. In fact, there was the recollection of the infamous line he shared with Tony Blair, where he said to the then opposition leader that if the two of them were ever going to make love, it would be done like porcupines, very carefully. And in fact, it was in the lead up to the 1997 election, when it appeared that Tony Blair was going to emerge the winner, that there was a rather testy exchange. Let's have a listen to it.
Didn't you sense in these discussions you were having with senior politicians before a general election that a sort of form of pirouette or negotiation was occurring, and they wanted to know how far they had to go?
You're making sinister inferences.
No, it's not
I want to say, Mr. Jay, that I, in 10 years of his power there, never asked Mr. Blair for anything, nor indeed did I receive any favours. And if you want to check that, I think you should call him.
I don't think that was my question, Mr. Murdoch. It was a more subtle question.
Indeed it was.
That the interchange between a sophisticated politician and a sophisticated newspaper proprietor would not be a hard-nosed commercial negotiation, how much to pay for something. It would be at a far higher and more subtle level. It would be each trying to work out how much to give and how much to press for. Do you follow me?
I'm afraid I don't have much subtlety about me.
Don't you, Mr. Murdoch?
No.
OK, well, Rupert Murdoch's also been quizzed about his relationship with his editors. How did he respond to those questions?
Well, you sort of get a different line from him. He said that his view has always been to tell the truth, to interest the public, but to tell the truth, that he's tried to set this standard of being this ethical leader. On one hand, he says he's hands-off and he never instructs them what to do or say. But then on the other hand, he said that if politicians want to know how he's feeling, they only need to read the editorial of the Sun newspaper, which, of course, is the highest-selling newspaper here in the UK. The one line that certainly came through that will be remembered when this day is long gone is Rupert Murdoch denying that he has any aura or charisma. It was put to him that perhaps it was his charisma that led to his power. He suggested that was not the case.
Lisa Miller will wait and watch what happens next. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.